All right, we're going to get started. So today's class is going to be about Dotloop, and you guys want the lights? Probably that's better, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. So we're going to go through. We're just going to talk about Dotloop, and I'm going to walk you through how to use it, get you started. So the idea of today is basically just the basics of Dotloop. So all of you should have received an email with your username and a password. So hopefully you do. If not, then it should be just your, whatever the email address you gave us should be your username, and you can do a forgot password and get logged into it. So when you first log into Dotloop, it's going to bring you to this page right here. So this is the first page of Dotloop, and probably where I'm going to start is we'll start over here on this right hand side, and we'll kind of work our way across to some of these things. But probably the biggest complaint that I ever hear from people about Dotloop, which is actually not, I don't get many complaints, but when I do hear people complain about it, usually the thing that I hear them complain about is just the number of emails that they get from Dotloop, like telling them what's going on with loops and things like that. And so where I thought we'd start with is just under this profile here. So if you click on that, you'll see you have my account. It's got the different profiles, which you should just only have one profile there. But from time to time, I will hear people say something about my Dotloop was working and now it's not working. And if I ever go sit down with them, the first thing I do when I pull it up when they say it's not working is I go to this, click on, the default profile here. And occasionally they have somehow created a second profile. And so whenever they've said it's not working, it's usually because they're on the wrong profile. So anyway, so you can see on mine, because I'm an admin, I can see all of our Utah files and California, but you should just have this default profile. Okay? But if I click under here on this my account, it's going to bring up to where you can kind of see the information and things that you have. Here's your account settings. Here's these other profiles, which this is where, and I probably shouldn't show you this, but you could add an additional profile, but then that's where the problem gets created. So typically don't do that. There's some document preferences, which you probably aren't going to do much with. And then messenger notifications, stuff like that, under this, under the my account information there, okay? So that's the profile section of this and the my account piece. So I don't know, questions on any of that so far? I mean, pretty basic there. So the next thing is this next one over is the templates. So if you're ever wanting to just find a document from within the company has, like if I go back in time before we used Dotloop, we always had just like a file folder somewhere that people would go to get documents to then go meet with their clients, right? So we don't have that anymore. So if you ever want a document, this is where you're going to go. So you would come here to templates, and if you click on that, it's always going to default you to this personal section. So you can house personal documents in here if you want as well. And that's where you would put them, is under that personal piece there. So if you wanted to do some of those, this inbox, you're probably never really going to use, so I wouldn't worry about that. But then the next one down here is all C21 and MLS forms. So if I click on that, all C21 and MLS forms, that's going to bring up over here every one of our forms. So this is where all of our forms for the company are housed, is just under the templates and then all C21 and MLS forms. And if you were looking for a specific form, you could just come up here into this into the search area and type in whatever document you're looking for. Okay. So that's how you would go if you're just wanting to just find one to just print off. So if you're not going to really ever go there, you're not going to go to this template section unless it's just you were wanting to print off a document. If you're going to use it as part of within Dotloop and sending it to a client to get them to sign, you're not going to go through here. But again, just that this is where all the documents and things are housed. Next is, which by the way, of all these things along here at the top, the reason I started on the right side and heading this way is we're gonna spend most of the time in this class on this loop section, but I just want you to know what everything else is. So if I click on this people part, it brings you here to this network, and you can create these trusted service providers. So if you wanted to set up and have trusted service providers, you could do that in here. I don't know of many people that have actually done that, but it's available. And then the next thing is contacts. This is where all of your contacts in the system are housed, is under contacts, which similar to the templates part of a thing is it's pretty rare that you're going to ever want to go up here to the top and click on this people and go to contacts. You're just typically not going to do that. But if for some reason you wanted to, it's there and available to where you could go through and as you see, if I scroll through here, here's all the people that I have in the system as contacts. And they've all just gotten there just over time as I've either worked with people or helped agents on contracts, stuff like that. So that's the people section. Next one is tasks. And again, you're typically probably not going to use this a whole lot. But again, just want you to be aware of what it is and what is there available. So you'll see here it has some personal tasks and then assigned to me. So if you and typically, again, you're not going to have much to do with that. But like our transaction coordinators, when they're overseeing a transaction, they might use that assign to and assign the task to somebody. So the reason I do want to bring this up to you is because if for some reason you decided that you were going to hire an assistant, so at some point you're in your career, you say, I want to hire an assistant, and I don't know how many people we've got online still, but if somebody has an assistant now, you could go through and create tasks and then assign them to people who are on your team as well. So that's what that assigned to me section would be. Overdue would be if when a task was assigned, it had a due date to it. This is where overdue tasks would show up. And then any completed tasks you've done would show up here. And then just all tasks are going to be there. Okay. And then same thing with loop tasks. So this would be just loop tasks that are assigned to you. If there's any that are overdue, the completed, and all tasks. Okay. So like I said, for the most part, you're not going to end up going in here a whole lot. Most of your time in the system is going to be spent under this loops section, which is where it takes you to when you log in. Okay. Oh, which by the way, let me go back to this one other thing. The other thing, remember I said that and this doesn't happen very often. In fact, I've only seen it a couple of times happen, but when I talked about the default profile, and if anybody's ever having a problem, that's like the first place that I go to check is because they created another profile that's not attached to the company. The other way you can make sure that you are attached to the company is you notice when I clicked on the people, this tasks, and the templates, notice that it shows here, it's got our Century 21 Everest logo, and this is all in black here. That's another way you can make sure you're connected to the company is if you just click on those. Versus when I'm on the loops section here, you'll notice that black ribbon is gone. So anyway, if for some reason you ever run into an issue, those are how would be some of the ways you could find out, okay, I got to make sure I'm on the right profile. Because if you are and you go to tasks, it'll have this black Century 21 Everest. Okay. All right, now let's get into what really where you're going to be using the system for. And that's under this loops section. Okay. So from this home page here, this loops section, when you first log in, you have a few different options available to you as far as how this looks. And those are contained right here in this. So if I click on this, you can see I have a grid view that I can do. I can do a list view or the compact. So I'm on this is the grid view. If I go to a list view, it's just going to give it to me looking like this in a list, or I could do a compact, which makes it even smaller to where I would have more information shown right there. So just that one's going to be just whatever your personal preference is. I usually just make mine, bless you, on this default, which is the grid view. But like I say, if you like the list view better or you like the compact, that's where you can change that. So just decide what you want to use there. So these are what's showing here is just all the loops that I have created, and they're just going to be showing along here. So let me show you what you can do. So let's say, like, I'll probably end up creating one for today, but you'll see this one over here farthest on the right is this testing for class that I did in May. Well, if I scroll through, you can see I've got just a bunch of different loops on here. And so if you want to try to keep it a little cleaner, one of the things that to know about this system, and I'll say this a couple of times throughout the training here, but you cannot delete anything. So, and part of the reason for that is just for compliance type things, Dotloop created it to where you can't delete anything. You can archive, so you can archive things, but you can't delete. So let's say, for example, that I don't want all of these loops showing here, like I just want to keep it a little bit cleaner. Then I can come here, so you'll see on this one that I did for class in May, I've got down here this archive, and I can just click on archive, and now it shows that it's archived here. If I refresh my page, now that one's gone. So now again, it's not deleted. You can't ever delete anything. So you don't ever have to panic. So like I say, it's a good news, bad news thing. Like you don't ever have to panic of like, oh, I accidentally deleted it. You can't delete anything. It'll still be there, which that's where I say good news, bad news, because I have seen times where people wanted to delete something and they thought they deleted it. And they were like, well, no, I never got that. And you can't delete. So all we have to do is show archive. So to get it back. And the way that we would do that is right here where this filters section is. So that's kind of the next thing on here is you'll notice when I go to filters here, it's turned off right now. But the options I have is I can hide the archive, which is what I've done. I could show only the archive. So if I do that and hit apply here. So now here's all the ones that I have archived. Okay. Or I could show all of them, which is then going to show everything. And so you'll see that brought that one back up here again. Okay. So typically you're going to want to keep it on hide archived just so that it keeps it cleaner. But that's how you would find an archived one after you do archive.
And you can just edit it. If you, for example, if you don't gonna use one anymore, you can just edit it.
You could edit it. Is that what you
Yeah.
you could edit if you wanted to. You could do that. The only thing is
Delete it or archive.
yeah, there's no delete, only archive.
Okay.
So yep, you'd have to just, so typically that's where I'm saying you just want to archive it and then you just don't worry about it anymore. So once you, like I say, the only time I would ever do it is if for some reason I archived one and was like, oh, I want to go back and find that. Which, like, for example, this is a townhouse down in Provo that I helped a friend of mine buy. And I don't really ever see a reason that I would need it. So I could just hit archive and now it'll be there. But if for some reason he ever called me and was like, hey, I need a copy of the closing documents from that, is when I would maybe come back here and say, okay, show me only the archived. And then bam, there it is to where I can get it. And you can unarchive. So if I said, oh, actually, I don't want that archived, I can hit unarchive there. And then you can go back to hide the archived and it's put it right back to you. So, okay. All right. So next, let's go through and we're going to create a loop, show you how you would do all of those pieces. Okay. So actually one other thing first, let me show you one other thing or a couple things here. So you've got this notifications here and you're seeing that I've got 99 plus notifications. If I click on that, it's going to bring up, here's all the notifications and it's showing for the last 7 days that I've had, or I could do the last 30 days. So here's notifications that have taken place, which the other thing I really like about Dotloop is it keeps track of every single thing that goes on. So under these notifications, you can see here on August 13th, it shows that Kimberly Barlow signed a document that I had sent over. And on August 12th, Mark Barlow had signed this document. And then here's some from August 9th. And so you can go through and just, you can only look at either last 7 days, last 30, or custom date range you can put in there. And then the other thing from that homepage here is this activity log. If you click on that, that will give you every single thing that has gone on in the system. So you can see it's showing here that today that I had archived that loop. It shows that I unarchived it, shows that I archived this other one. Like everything that you do in the system, it's going to keep track of what goes on with it. And the same thing with your clients, and I'll show you that as well. But it keeps track of everything they've done. So for example, if I send a loop to one of my clients to sign, and they look at the document, but then don't sign it, and then tried to tell me, hey, we never got it, I haven't seen it. I can go in and look at the history and I can see that they looked at the doc, it'll tell you they looked at the document. So you have a history of everything. So I say that for you as well, because from the company standpoint, if an agent ever tries to say, oh, I didn't know I was supposed to do that or whatever, that we could go look at the history and see, well, no, you looked at it, you saw, you knew it was there. So anyway, so just know that's another good thing about this. So, all right. The next thing too, so let me do this. I mentioned earlier that before Dotloop, we just had like a filing cabinet that would have had all of our documents in it. And if you needed one, you would go get it. Part of how I want you to think about Dotloop is like it is a big filing cabinet. Okay? Every single transaction that we do within the company, everything that potential transaction that we do, anything that you do in Dotloop is housed there and available for the company. Okay. So as we go through and talk about this, just kind of keep that in mind, and I'll refer back to it, because sometimes what will happen is agents will create a loop, they'll put a property under contract, and then their assumption is, because of what I said, think of it like this big filing cabinet. Their assumption is that we at the company then know everything you're doing, and yes, we have access to it, but no different than if we had just a big filing cabinet in here and you had a document, you walked over and put it in the filing cabinet and closed it. I would never know that you did that unless I went and looked for it in that filing cabinet. So think of Dotloop as that same way, as just because you're doing something in here, don't assume that our compliance department or the transaction coordinators, don't assume anybody knows that you've done anything unless you tell them. And I'll show you how you're going to tell them in the system as well. Okay. All right. So let's get started. So we're going to click add a loop. So when I click on add loop, the first thing you're going to do is name the loop. And the ideal scenario is we want to name the loop either the property address or the MLS number, like it's showing right here, which if it's a listing, you should know the address, so the property, right? But if you're working with a buyer, so let's say that I've picked up a new buyer that I'm going to be helping buy a house. Well, I don't know what property they're going to buy, so I can't put in the address. I don't know what the MLS number of that property is either, so I couldn't put that in either. So you can name these anything you want. The way as a company that we want to keep track of properties though, or transactions, is going to be by the property address. So at some point, you'll want to have the name of the loop be the address, but it's okay if you start off with it not being that. So if you were just putting in the customer's name or your client's name, that would work. So I'm just going to put in testing for class on August 30th. Okay. So that's what I'm going to name this loop. But you'll notice as I was typing that in, it's looking for an address. So if I had the address of a property and start to type it in, it's going to try to find it. That.
Is that based on Google? Is that a Google search?
I think it is part of Google. Good. Let's see. Let me just type one in here and see. Yeah. So it does then pull it up based on that. So yeah, so you could, so again, if you knew the address, you can do it that way. I mean, it's just off Google Maps. So, but I'm going to put this one in testing for class. Oops. August. Okay. Then I'm just going to hit continue. So once you've named it, The next thing it's gonna ask for is what's the template you want to use? So the options that we have available to us, if I click on this drop down, is gonna be new listing blank loop, buyer under contract blank loop, and I'll explain those. And then relocation listing, relocation buyer, or REO listing. So these last three, I would say for the most part, unless you're on one of the relocation teams, which a lot of times then people say, well, how do I get on that? You have to have been in the business for at least 2 years. You have to be recommended by one of the managers, and so that's kind of what the process looks like to get on a relocation team. But they're usually pretty competitive, meaning that it's not like we have a lot of people on there. And so there also has to be an opening on the relocation team. So just so you know, that's how that works. But okay,
What's REO?
REO is real estate owned, is what that stands for. So basically it's a bank owned property. And so through our relocation department, at one point, I don't know if we're still doing it, but at one point we were trying to develop some relationships with the banks. So that when they foreclosed on a property. So in the banking world, a foreclosure is called an REO, real estate owned. So yeah, great question. All right, so we're going to talk about new listing blank loop, buyer under contract, and buyer under contract blank loop. So the only difference between a new listing and a blank loop and buyer under contract and blank loop is under the new listing, we're going to have some placeholders put in there. So think of it this way. If you do a new listing blank loop, there's nothing in there. The new listing up here is going to have placeholders. So it actually still doesn't have any documents there, but it shows you here's the minimum number of documents you're going to need versus under the blank loop, it's just blank. There's nothing there. So my recommendation is always whenever whenever I'm doing either a new listing or a buyer under contract that I'm working with, I always select the one that is new listing or buyer under contract. And the reason being is it's going to keep you from forgetting to get certain documents. So I'll show you what I mean. So we'll do this as a buyer under contract. So I'm going to select that as the template. Okay. Actually, no, I'm going to do the listing. We'll do new listing. And then I'm going to click continue. So now it's giving me an option to upload a photo. Now, sometimes what happens on some of the systems that we have within Century 21 is either there already is a photo there or it may ask for one. And I've seen sometimes where agents within the company will go in and there will be a photo of themselves or something in there. And they'll be like, hey, I don't like that photo. I got a new one or whatever. And keep in mind that a lot of times those photos are not, nobody is ever going to see them. So that's what I'm saying with this. You could upload a photo of the house if you want to, but nobody's ever going to see it. Like, I mean, within the company we will, but this is not like an advertising type of a thing. So I'll tell you, I don't think I've ever uploaded a photo, just so you know. So probably you don't need to, is what I'd say. Okay. But again, if you wanted to, you're more than welcome to put a photo.
So this is just an internal system. You don't share this with the buyer or anything?
So yes, we will end up sharing it with the buyer, and I'll say more about that. So I guess possibly they might see it. I don't know on their end if they would see the photo or not. That's a good question. But even if it is, you would be sharing it with the buyer and they would be seeing the photo of the house they're buying, which I guess.
I would imagine they wouldn't see it because you're only sharing the documents they signed.
Right.
But
Yeah, so the only thing I'm not sure, and I probably should upload it. Let's do it. Let me just go find one. Let's see if we can find a. I don't know if this will work. Let's try it and see what happens. So let's see. I'll just grab this photo here. And see if we can drop it here. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think that was. See if I have one here and go down on the signature. No idea what this photo is, so hopefully it's appropriate. Oh, it's my son. Okay, so that works. Okay, yeah, so we'll just see what happens here. So. All right, so I'm gonna hit done. So now it's creating the loop. I think I know where that photo goes, which is why I was thinking we would throw it in there. So yeah, that's what's doing it. Okay, so now here I can either create another loop or I can view the loop, okay? So, but to begin with, just because I want to see if what I think happens with this photo is what happens. If I go back to my loops here, yep, what's going to happen is it will just have a picture of the house right there. So again, yeah, whatever. Oh, here's.
I guess it's good if you're like, you can put the picture of the face of the buyer,
Yeah,
you know,
Could
like,
do that, I
like you
guess.
know that person, you know, you can see their face.
the hard part is as you can see, so looking down here, this agent Lars had put in a photo. It looks like it only puts a partial of the photo anyway. So again, to me, I'm like, that's why bother? Why bother?
Yeah.
Okay, so we go back here to testing for class. Okay, so now I'm in the loop. Now within this, so here's all the documents and here's the folders. So again, think of it as Dotloop is this big filing cabinet. And then inside of the filing cabinet, you've got these hanging file folders. And that's what these are going to be, is this like listing documents would be a place to a folder that you're going to put all the listing documents. And then you've got this under contract folder, that's just where you would put all the other documents. So you'll notice as we look at this, this has the placeholders for all the listing paperwork. And down here has placeholders for the under contract paperwork. Now, keep in mind on this that there's no, the only document that's in here right now is this Dotloop division admin rules, which we put that in there for you so that you could go look at what the rules are regarding electronic files and stuff like that. So you're not going to ever want to share that with a customer or anything, your client. But here's the idea of this is these are just placeholders that are set here to let you know, like on a listing at minimum, and keep in mind, I'm saying at minimum. So I'm not saying you won't use more than this, but at a minimum, when you list someone's home, helping a seller, you're going to need the exclusive right to sell, the MLS input form, the seller's property condition disclosures, the preliminary title report, the wire fraud alert disclosure, and the affiliated business disclosure. So at minimum, those are the forms you're going to need. So now how do I get the forms in there that I'm going to need? Well, how I'm going to do that then is I'm going to come here and say, okay, need to get the exclusive right to sell. So if I click on add file, it gives me two options. I can upload it from a computer or from the templates. So the only time you would do it from your computer would be the scenario earlier where I said if I had gone into templates and printed off the listing agreement and then went and met with my client, they physically signed it, I brought it back to the office, scanned it into my computer, then I would upload it from my computer. But because this is a brand new listing, we haven't done anything yet, I'm going to go to templates. Now, when I click on templates, you'll notice it brings up what I was showing you before, that same section where I'm going to go down here to all C21 and MLS forms. I click on that, and then all of the forms that we have are here. So now I would just do a search. And the other thing that's good about having those placeholders is if you forgot what the name of the form is that you need, it was right there. So it was exclusive right to sell, right? So I could just type in exclusive, and then you'll notice it's sorting these based on every document that has exclusive somewhere in the title. So I just would keep typing to get exclusive right to sell. So here's the options that I have is the exclusive right to sell blank, the exclusive right to sell blank addendum. So if I needed the addendum and a change addendum, all that stuff. So it's this top form is the one that I want. So I just say, click on that because I want the exclusive right to sell blank, hit copy. It's now imported it in. I hit OK. And you can see now it's gone from these grayed out ones are just the placeholders, but now this one you can see where it's in bold and shows not submitted is how I can now know I've got the form in there, but it hasn't been submitted to the office. Remember I was telling you that if you were to just go put a file in a filing cabinet and you didn't tell anybody, nobody would know it was there. That's this. That's the idea of this not submitted is the way of telling you, you haven't told anybody about this form, okay? All right, so I've got that. Then the next would be MLS input form. So while we're on this one, let me talk about it. So I could come on this one and do to templates and go to all C2 on MLS forms, remember? And I'm gonna go MLS input. Maybe just put, it's just input. Yeah, oops, sorry. The residential listing input, and I could just select that and copy it in. But what I recommend to do on this form is if you're gonna be listing the property anyway, I recommend go to the MLS. And on the MLS, you can get that MLS data input sheet. You can start to input the property into the MLS. So I recommend go to the MLS, fill all that out, print it, then upload it into here.
Oh.
So save it as a PDF on your computer. And then you would come to here and do add from computer, go to wherever you had put it from your computer and upload that one in here.
I just did my first listing this
Okay.
week.
Yeah.
And I did the two. It took forever.
Oh, you did both of
I
them?
did
Yeah,
both of them.
yeah, no. Just do the MLS one and then do a print to
And just do a
PDF, save it, and then you can upload it here. And then what you'll have to do when you do that, though, is you'll have to drop in the initials and signatures, which I'll show you how to do in just a little bit here. But yeah, that's how you want to do that. All right, so next I would come down and add and get the seller property condition disclosure. So I'm gonna go here, all C2 on MLS. And then that's the first form that comes up anyway, just kind of lucked into that. So I would just select it, copy it in. As soon as it says okay, imported, now that's there. The preliminary title report you're gonna get from the title company, so I wouldn't have that yet, so just leave it blank. Then I want to add the wire fraud alert, so I go to templates, all C2 on MLS, type in wire fraud. Then I've got the options for the buyer signature of the seller. Well, this one's the seller, so I get the seller one. Input it, and then same thing with affiliated business disclosure, go to all C2 on MLS forms. Type in affiliated business disclosure, and I want the seller. Well. All right, so for now, I've got all of those forms here ready to go, okay? So the next step is, I want to fill them out, get them ready to send off to the seller. So if I just come over here, I could do this one of two ways. I could come just click on just this. And it would open up this exclusive right to sell and gives me this autofill, which I'll say more about in a second. Or, which typically I would recommend, is I would come and just do this select all. And then you'll notice up here, it gives me some options to either archive, which remember you can't delete, but I could archive all these. I can make a copy of them, I can open them, print them, download, or fax. What's a fax? Anybody know? So I go click on that. And then I would want to do open. So as soon as I click on open, that's going to open up every one of the forms. And what you want to do then is it gives you this autofill option. And the way that most of the forms that we have in the system set up is I can fill this out in the autofill one time. And anywhere that, for example, the buyer or the seller's name shows up on those forms, on any of these ones we just did, it should autofill. So I don't have to keep retyping the seller's name. So how I would do that is I would come down here, and because this is listing site again, I don't know who the buyer is yet. So I'd come down here to seller and select person. So you'll notice when I click on that, it gives me the option of no one. I could put in me as the seller, which I'm not, the office or the company, or add person. So you're going to do add person. And then from here, if I had the person already in the system, which so I'll just put in Rick Bentley, I always do this with him. And then, so if they're already in the system and I type in the name, you can see it gives me the option to select them. If they weren't in here, so let's say I started to type in Raul, nothing's popping up because I don't have anything. So I would just continue to fill out that form, okay? But because Rick's in there, I'm just going to hit that. And then you'll notice it's already brought up his email address. And you could put the rest of this information, and I think it is a good idea to put in like their phone number and some of those things, which. So we put in his phone number there. The role is seller because that's what we had chosen before. So I could put in the rest of this information if I wanted, doesn't matter. But at minimum, you're going to need their email address in there, okay? But I usually say put in the phone number as well. That way you have all of the people related to that transaction, you'll have all their information in one area that you could go access, okay? All right,
So when you put the email there, automatic is gonna send it to the person?
so not yet.
Oh, yeah.
Not yet. Yeah, at this point, if I did this, if I click this box, which was send intro email. Then as soon as, if I do that, as soon as I hit add person, it would send them an email. But if I don't, then nothing's gonna be sent yet.
Just gonna save it on the system.
Just gonna save it in the system. Now, the other thing before I do hit add person that I want to talk to you guys about. You'll notice it has an option right here of add to my team. Logically, you would think you should check that box. But you do not want to check that box, okay? So here's why. Add to my teams, basically think of it this way. If you click add to my team, you're giving them access to see every single thing in this Dotloop. In this loop, not the whole, not all of Dotloop.
Just in that.
This one loop, yeah, that file. So think of it that way, is you're giving them access to see that file, which what that also means is by the end of the transaction, the breakdown of how you got paid commission is going to be in the loop. And if you clicked add to my team, your client could go in and see the breakdown of how you got paid. So only select add to my team if it is somebody who is a team member that you're okay with them seeing everything in the loop. Okay,
Almost nobody.
yeah, so yeah, pretty much there's not many people. But just for whatever reason, most people, the first few times you use it, you would think, oh, well, yeah, I want to add them to my team. I want to, but just remember, add to my team equals they see everything in the loop, everything, and including your commission. So you may or may not want that. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to click on add person. So now you'll notice it's got Rick put in here as the seller. So let's say for seller number 2 is going to be, I'm going to click down here again, add person, but you'll notice it's put Rick in the list now, but add person. Then from here, I would go in and put in who the other person is. So I'm just going to start typing my wife's information here. I don't know why she's in there twice. But. So if I selected that, now I've got her put in here as the seller as well. Okay, so I click add person. So now it's got seller 1, seller 2, who's the listing agent. Well, I click on that. I'm already in the system, so I could just select me from there. And now I've got all of that put in. So the next step on this would be, okay, what other information do I want to autofill? Well, I want to put in the address of the property and all of those things, right? So I just come up here and we'll just say, just use the same one I always use. If there was a unit number, fine. Down here, I'm just going to put in Salt Lake in Utah and the zip code and autofill. Okay, so as soon as I click autofill, you'll notice now it's put in the seller's names here. It's got me as the agent here. It's got the address of the property. So as I scroll through these documents, it's auto-filled all, so I don't have to keep retyping it. I can just put it in the one time. Okay. Now the rest of this, then I would go through and finish filling out the effective date. So if it was today, August 20, I would just go through and fill out the rest of the form, right? Okay, so after I've gone through and filled out this form, then the next step on this, so once you've gone through and filled out the form, then you're going to go through and take a look at all the places that it has initials and or signatures. Okay, so it has this sign here, and you'll notice when I hover over it, it says can be signed by the sellers, so it could be signed by Rick or Jenny. So you could leave it that way and then they could just go through and do it. My recommendation though is instead of that, if you click on it and then hover up here, this assign to, I can then assign it to a specific person. So you click on it, hover over this, put in the person's. Now you'll see it has Jenny signed here, Rick signed here. This has a spot for me to sign. So assign this field. I'm going to assign that one to me. And now when I hover over it, it gives me the option to sign it now. So I can just say, okay, I'll sign it right now. So now, boom, mine's signed. So now it's got a spot for them to sign. Mine's already signed. So I just come down here to the seller property condition disclosures. Now, and I don't know why this is, like, I don't know why this one didn't auto assign who it goes to, but you'll notice on these property condition disclosures, it's already got their initials in, so I don't need to do anything. It's automatically going to have them initial all those spots. So I would just go through this just to make sure that it's got all of their initials and things where they need them to be. Our new seller disclosure form that's 16 pages long. Okay, so you'll notice as I go through here, it's had a spot for with their initials there. Then it's got him to sign here, her to sign there. So we're good. Wire fraud alert. Rick sign here, Jenny sign there. Great. Rick sign here.
These are all the forms in one single, you can see all of them.
Yep, because I selected all. Yep. So now from here, then the next thing. So now let's say I've got all those, they're ready to go. The next thing I would do is I can either just save them right here, or I could do save and share. So if I'm ready to send it to the client, I can do save and share. But let's say I'm not ready to, and I'll show you why I wouldn't do a save and share just yet. Well, actually, let me see. Yeah, no, that's not what I wanted. So that's okay. So I'm just going to cancel out. So I didn't share it, but it is saved. So if I go back now, and it always will say, do you want to share these first? So no. Okay, so I've got these all filled out and ready to go. Now, on these forms, the way I'm going to want to share them to them is some of them, when I share them, in fact, let me go back to that. So I'm just going to select all and do, which we don't want to share this one. Always remember, so yeah, let me say this. Oh, you don't want to share this Dotloop division admin rule thing because there's nothing to sign for your client. They don't need to know about it. So take that one off. Okay, so I click share. What's going to happen now is it's showing here that Jenny has 22 fields to sign, Rick has 22 fields to sign. And then the options that they have available to them when I share it are can sign, view only, can fill and sign, or can edit in private. So view only is they're just only going to be able to look at the form. They can't do anything with it. So there are going to be times, like maybe for the title company, that you would want to send them a document that there's nowhere for them to sign, so you would just send it as a view only. Most of these forms that I have set up to go to these guys are going to be that I only want them to sign. But that seller disclosure, I want them to be able to fill out and sign. So you would do can fill and sign. Okay. And then the last one is can edit in private. Is again, think of that as kind of more like you've added them to your team. Can edit in private, they can go in and just make any changes they want. So you typically don't want to do that. Okay. So I'm going to back out of here because the way I usually do it is I send the seller property conditions separate from the others. So from here, I'm going to deselect that, hit share, then, and I'm not going to send it to my wife, but I'm going to send it to her. So there's 5 spots for them to sign. I'm going to just do it as can sign. You can enter a message, and here's what I recommend that you do. Whatever forms you're sending to them, put in here that that's what they are. Like type a message, like, so you would want to say, here is the listing agreement. What else do we have in there? I guess it would be the MLS input, which we don't have, but wire disclosure. Like, I recommend typing in what forms you're sending to them. Here's why. So I'm part of the professional standards. Well, I used to be, I'm not anymore. At the Salt Lake Board, I'm on the grievance committee now, but professional standards there. And so anytime there's a dispute between agents or the public and an agent, they can send, if it's an ethics or a commission dispute, they can send it to the board rather than going to small claims court or something like that. Well, I have sat in on those meetings where somebody has said, I'm entitled to the commission over this other agent. Well, why? Because I had a buyer broker sign with them. They were interfering with my client or whatever. And then you ask the client, did you sign a buyer broker? And they say, no, I didn't sign one. Now, granted, you can show them, well, here's your signature. But what people like to say with this type of a system is, well, I didn't know. I just got an email and I just clicked through it. Well, okay. But for me, at least on this gives you an extra layer of protection. If you have typed in, here's the forms that I'm sending. So for example, if this was a buyer and I would send them saying, hey, here's the exclusive buyer broker agreement.
You know, it's already.
Yeah, and they tried to say, well, I didn't know. You at least have another layer of saying, well, you got an email that said, here is the da, 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 da. So like, it may not still always work, but whatever, okay? And then the other option that I always do is it gives you the option to attach a PDF to the email. I always like to click on that. That way it gives the client a copy of what they're signing as well. Even though they have access always to it, like once you share a document with them, they have access to it forever. So even after the transaction's closed, they could log into Dotloop and still get it. But I just always go, here's a, attach a PDF, okay? All right, so I go ahead and click share. I probably shouldn't have told Rick to, in fact, let me text him real quick and say.
Rick, don't sign any.
No, I'm gonna
Don't
tell
sign.
two sign.
Oh, sign.
All right, we'll see if he does or not. So now, here's the next thing. So you'll notice on here, it's still showing as not submitted. And over here on the seller disclosures, I haven't shared it yet. But this one shows waiting on others to sign. So when I go hover over it, you can see it shows still waiting on Rick to sign. So the other thing, again, remember the system keeps track of everything that goes on. The moment Rick goes on and clicks on that to look at the form, if I come and hover over this, it'll say viewed by Rick, still waiting to sign. So I would at least know he's looked at it, he just hasn't signed it. Okay. Once he has signed it, then it'll be grayed out like this, but it'll say signed up here. Okay. So right now is just waiting on others to sign. Now, if you had sent it to two people and one has signed and one hasn't, and you hover over this, it'll say so-and-so has signed, waiting on whoever. Okay. All right, so now on the seller disclosure window, so let me deselect these here. On that seller disclosure one, if I was going to share that one, I'm going to click on it here. And then again, I would share that one to him, but I would do can fill and sign. And the reason I'm going to do that on the seller disclosure is because they still need to fill them out. So I'm going to click on can fill and sign, and then I would go ahead and share, which I'm not going to do that because I don't want him to go through and do that. But, all right. So the next step in this then is really just once you've shared it to your client is now you're just waiting for them to go and actually sign. In the event though, that they say they didn't get it, which that happens from time to time, it'll go to their junk mail or whatever. Somebody says they didn't get it. You can go reshare it. So if I came over here and I said, okay, I need to reshare this. So I click on it, click share. So you'll notice it doesn't even give me the option to send it to Rick. It gives it to for me to send it to Jenny because I didn't share it with her yet. But up here, it's who has access. So if I need to reshare a document, I would come up here and click on this. Then it shows waiting for him to sign. I could select it and reshare it again here. Okay. So that's just how you would reshare if you needed to. But in the meantime, then I'm just waiting for him to sign. Okay. I was hoping maybe he was sitting at his desk and see the text and do it, but guess not. But that's okay. So once he does though, once it is signed, once he's gone through and signed it and I'm ready to submit it to the office, then the next thing that I would do is I would take these forms again. I would select all and decide the ones that I'm going to share. And then you click on this submit for review. Okay. So once I do submit for review, it pops it up and it's saying, okay, so now fill out the rest of the information. So if you didn't have the address, it would have you put it in.
Did you do that when he signed already all the documents?
Yes. Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah. don't share it until it's signed by your client. Yeah, because at that point, just because you filled it out, you wouldn't want to share it to the office because the office is like, so what? You filled out a form, like, who cares, right? So you're gonna only do it once you have it. But then down here, it's got this listing information. So it's gonna ask me for what's the expiration date of this listing? So whatever the date was, we'll just go out here a ways. And what's the listing date? So let's just put in today. And then the original list price, so we just put in 500,000. Okay. So that's good, we hit next, then it's saying, okay, which folder are you wanting to submit? Now remember, because this one was the listing one, it has both the listing and the under contract, well, it's just a brand new listing, so we don't have any under contract. So I would just put in listing documents and then hit submit. Okay, now, I'm not gonna do it just because I don't want the staff to get it. But, excuse me, the other thing it's gonna ask for right here is the type, so what is it? And I would just say it's an active listing. Now, here's the reason why you select the different types of things here. Is based on what you select there, decides who it's gonna send it to in the company. And so that's the reason you'd have to come in and say, okay, it's an active listing, and then hit submit. That way the system now knows which of the staff people to alert, hey, here's a new listing. If I was canceling one or withdrawing it, or it's gone under contract, then it's gonna alert somebody different. Did you have another question?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask him who's gonna review that.
Oh, who's gonna get it? Yeah, so
Yeah.
it just depends on
But it's gonna be a staff for your team or staff of the company?
the company.
The company.
Yep. Yep, so once you do active listing, then or whichever of these it is, it's gonna go to whoever within the company to alert them. Because there's stuff we have to do on the Century 21 side to get it going as well.
Okay.
Okay, so I would just hit submit. And I'm trying, should I do it? Yeah. So now you'll see up here, it shows in this yellow, folder's been submitted for review. Okay, sorry. Oh, thanks, Lisa. If you guys online, if you have questions, either unmute or throw it in the chat box. I haven't been doing a good job of keeping an eye on the chat box, so. All right, so now, though, you'll notice all of these are showing that they are submitted. Okay, so this left-hand side is gonna keep you updated as between you and the company, what's going on. So what would happen next then is whoever that goes to, based on what you've selected, they're gonna get a notification, they're gonna get an email saying Russ has submitted a new listing. Then they'll go through and look at it, and then they'll either approve the document. So you can see right here when I hover over that, waiting on your admin for review. Once they've reviewed it, it will either, if they approve it, it'll show up and say approved. So there's no problem, you don't have to do anything. If there's a problem with it, so for example, let's say, well, I didn't get signatures and they want to send it back to me, they can return it and it would say returned. And then they'll have right here, they've got tags they can add. And so in gray right here, it would show up a message like saying missing signatures or whatever. They'll put in something there. So you'll know what it is. And they'll usually send you a message or a note right here through this that would let you know as well. So you can communicate with your clients and the staff through these notes as well up here at the top. Okay, so if they sent you something, they'll usually go in here, type a note and hit send, and then it'll add it to that list. But you'll also get an email, but it'll show up in your list here of everything that's gone. Okay. All right, let's see. Trying to think what else, if there's anything else. I think that, oh, no, I know what else I need to do. Okay, let me do one other thing. So we're gonna go to this MLS input form. I'm gonna do from templates. I'm gonna go to, let's see, what should I grab out of here? I'll just grab this. Okay, so let's say that I had done the MLS input. So you'll notice it's showing that it's MLS input. What I added really wasn't, but remember, you would have on the MLS filled it out, done a print to PDF, saved the PDF to your computer. Now you've uploaded it here. Well, so now I need to get my clients to sign it. So if I'm gonna go into that form, which this would be the MLS input form, which this is not. But, so I've got this all in here ready to go, but I need to add their signatures, which I didn't realize I already had a spot for that. Pretend that's not there. So I need to add signatures. Up here under this add, I can add signatures, I could add initials, I could add a text box, date, name, checkbox, a radio button, or I could strike through stuff, okay? So I come up here and say, okay, I need to get their signature. So I do add signature. Is it not working?
Huh.
Why it's not working for me? None of these are working for some reason. Oh, there, that checkbox there. There we go. I don't know why it was delayed there. So, okay, so I grabbed the signature and then I would come and just, I can drag it around, which I'm not holding anything down. Once you find where it goes, you're just gonna click on the mouse and then boom, it'll drop it. And then from there, I can do assign field, go up here, decide who I want to assign it to, and then it's ready to go for them to sign, okay? Same thing if I needed to add like a checkbox, take that and I could drop the checkbox wherever it is, and then I would check the box. Okay. So though that's how you're going to add signatures or initials to different spots, or any of this other information that you want to do on there. Okay? So once you've done that and then assigned who you want to do it, it's just good to go. Okay. Now, in the event though, let's say that I dropped it in here and I wanted to get rid of it. I can come click on it and then it creates this remove field right here. Click on that and it's gone. Same thing with this text box. Remove the checkbox, remove. I can get rid of them as well. Okay. All right. You overwhelmed?
How do you add the service provider that is in the bottom?
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, thank you. I do need to show you that. Okay, so within this loop, down here, you've got these service providers. Where you would get that from is if you would first have had to put it up here under the people section and added them in here. So let's say that I wanted to put in, the title company. I could have that and add them in right here. So I would just put in there. These are all the people who are already in there in the system for that. So like I could come in here and go, we got Crystal Cruz, so boom, there she is. Or I could try to, sort through here and find her as
I
well.
bet Crystal is so busy.
So
the customer, the buyer, or the seller, they can find, like if they go to that system, they find it right away, or do you need to share?
yeah, you would have to end up sharing it with them, and really, that's just it. I wouldn't really worry too much about setting these up here. Really, the reason you're gonna put those people in is just so that, go back to the loop. Just so that you can share documents to them. So if I come back to this one for here. Typically what you would do, so like if I wanted to add Crystal as the title person, I just do add person. I would start to type in her name, which she's already I've already got her in here. So, and then select the role, and I would go down to pass the title, escrow and title. Oops. And add person. So by doing that, she now has access, she'll be able to go in and see all the stuff. So that way I can share it through her. And then same thing, I would add the loan officer. I would just get anybody that's going to be a part of this transaction, add it in right there. And then tasks, you can go through and add tasks, but like I say, you're typically going to just be adding them for yourself in there, or for if you had an assistant, you could go and add a task and assign it to your assistant. But yeah, so that's where you would put the people into the system. All right. Questions? Anybody on Zoom? Questions? Anybody in person question?
If you go back to the loops on the grid.
Yep.
One thing that I've been not struggling, but really want to know exactly how it should be managed. Is if you go on the test loop for today, it says type listing for sale.
Uh-huh.
But if you open that drop down list, it will give you, wait, not down the status, I'm sorry, the status.
Oh.
So when do you move or who moves the loop?
So, yeah, the staff will do, like, so for right now, I would be saying it's a pre-listing.
Right,
And then if I had put in all the information, the price here or whatever,
yes.
then,
So you can do that, but then the staff will move that status from pre-listing and on, so I don't have to do it.
yeah,
right?
you don't have to worry about it.
I don't
Once
have
it
to
goes
worry.
under contract, they'll change the status then to under
Okay.
contract and all that. You could, I mean, if you wanted to, you
Right.
could go in and do it.
I noticed a couple of times I tried putting the listing price on it and it didn't save it.
Oh,
Is there a reason for that? Is
I
it
don't
because
know.
of the status doesn't allow it to be if it's not under contract or?
it shouldn't matter. I don't
Okay.
know. I don't know why I would do that.
Alright,
So the other thing you can tell on this too is it shows review, so if it had been reviewed, it'll say reviewed right here too, so you'll be able to see that. Oh, one other thing I was gonna show you. So within this, here, like I was telling you about this activity log up here. If you go click on that, it shows you every single thing that's gone on, so. You can notice I created the loop all the way to change the loop status from under contract to pre-listing, which I just did. So like it keeps track of everything that I invited Crystal to the loop, like, so you can always see every single thing that's gone on within the loops. And that's just again, under this activity log right here. And you could do the same thing for just a document as well. If you wanted to under there, you can review notes. Oh, that's good. No, sorry, that's wrong. Where is it at? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you can't do it. I thought you could do it just for each document too. Maybe you can't. You may have to do it under the activity log there, but anyway, if you're ever wondering, like, hey, I bet they did see it, even though they're saying they didn't, just go to your activity log and it'll show you everything that's gone on. Like right down to that I viewed the exclusive right to sell. So
I have a question on the send earnest request.
okay.
Why is that is that something we use? Do we use it?
Ernest, yes.
Yeah, so you send it to, let's say it's my buyer. It's my client, my buyer. Do I send it to my buyer and say, or is that something we send to, if I'm listed at home and I request an earnest money?
Yeah, great question. So earnest is used for your buyer to send earnest money to us.
Okay, for my buyer.
Yeah, it would be for your buyer to send it to us.
We don't ever communicate with the clients of the other agent on Dotloop. We never send anything to, let's say I have a listing. I don't send documents to their buyer.
No, you would send it, but I will send it through Dotloop to the other agent through Dotloop.
Right, but not to
But
their
I don't
buyer.
ever send it to their client
Yeah,
unless
it's-
if they ask me to in writing, hey, go ahead and do that, then maybe they put it in the loop or something, then I wouldn't put. But I would want to have documentation that they told me to contact their client.
Okay.
Yeah, outside of that. No.
Yeah. Okay.
Good question. All right. Well, thank you all for being here. So
Thank you.
Thursday's class will be 21 online and I'll send out an email too. But on Thursday, we'll go through and we're just going to do an overview of 20 units. Okay. So yeah, any of